I used to think safety had a sound. A kettle's soft whistle, a lock turning, the clink of china in a quiet kitchen. But that night, safety arrived as a scream. At 3:07 a.m., the smoke alarm didn't chirp. It wailed, a metallic howl that shaved sleep straight off my bones. My bedroom flooded scarlet. The smart bulb switched to emergency red. And the house spoke in a voice I did not choose. Good night, Harris. My name rolled through the vents like a lullaby with its vowels cut open. I swung my legs out of bed and felt the floor's winter cool. Then I tried the door handle. It clicked, stuck, again, locked, open. I said into the air, because my son Evan taught me to speak to my home like a polite guest. Front suite unlock. Request denied. The voice answered, calm as a chapel. Night mode active. I could taste the air now. Not scent, taste. A coin on the tongue, metallic and blank. The carbon monoxide detector should have been shrieking, but the little round face on the wall smiled green. I covered my mouth with a t-shirt, a habit from the old life. Factory days and paint thinner. Then I remember my wife's metronome breath when she slept and how I used to count it. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. Tonight my own inhalations had edges. Evan, I called. No answer. He'd moved back in last spring to keep an eye on me. I told friends he was my new guardrail. Some things you repeat until they sound true. The window lever resisted, magnet locked by the very system meant to keep thieves out. I looked for an honest tool. The honest tool was the oldest thing I owned. My wife's brass alarm clock, the one that ticks like a small heart. I lifted it, weighed it, and felt a foolish prayer rustle through me. Forgive me, I told the past and broke the glass. The night sash kicked inward, frigid air rushing in like a clean confession. I learned again how air should taste. Thin and empty, with no afterthought. Outside, the neighbor's porch light blinked to life. A voice across the fence, Mrs. Klein, bless her insomnia, shouted, "You all right, Mr. Harris?" "I'm getting there," I said. My throat rasped. "Call it in just in case." By the time the paramedics led me down the stairs, my house glowed like a patient pretending to sleep. The door deadbolt slid open with a soft purr, polite as manners. The thermostat held at a sensible 68, and the detectors, all green smiles. It made me want to laugh. Or pray. At the hospital, the pulse ox clipped my finger, small and certain. The young nurse had freckles scattered like sugar, and a voice you could trust with your last word. "Numbers look okay, Mr. Harris." Lucky neighbor. Lucky you. Lucky, I echoed, as if luck were something you could borrow. I asked them to check anyway. They checked. A gentle lecture on maintenance followed. Filters, batteries, schedules. Nothing about a house that tells you good night when it's trying to tuck you under for good. By mid-morning, I was home again. Sunlight fell in long ladders over the kitchen table, dust rising like thoughts you'd rather not think. The bulbs were white once more, blameless as teeth. I brewed tea, my late wife's blend from the tin, with blue forget-me-nots. I held the mug until heat bled into the bones of my fingers, and I tried to believe in daylight. Evan arrived with his laptop and his smooth mouth. "Dad, you scare me half to death. I told you, we need to let me audit the whole setup. I can push a firmware patch, roll back the hub, scrub the automations." "Nothing needs scrubbing," I said softly. "Everything is already spotless." He smiled without showing teeth. That's kind of the point of automation. I lifted my cup the way a judge might lift a gavel. Something spoke last night, and it wasn't the voice you set. Evan glanced past me toward the hub on the sideboard, a glossy little brain the size of a biscuit tin. Could be a fallback voice. Happens when the cloud service resets. Does a cloud also lock doors on the inside? Silence spread between us. Thin and sticky, he shrugged and opened his laptop. Crisp keystrokes. Confidence like cologne. Let me check the event history. Event history. I liked the sound, like the past might finally sit still. He tilted the screen and lines of small type scrolled. Times. Triggers. Rooms. Night mode. Armed. Smoke profile. Active. Door lock. Engaged. His fingers moved as if nothing on earth could surprise them. "See," Evan said too quickly. "False positive." The system read vapor from the shower as smoke. I was asleep. His eyes flicked up, then away. Bathroom humidity sensors off by a mile. It's a common misread. The house can misread. The house can learn. The house can decide. These were all things Evan had said proudly when he brought me the future in 2 cartons and a grin. "You'll never have to worry again, Dad. The house knows you." I thanked him then, because I needed something to trust. This morning, trust felt like a brittle thing you set on a high shelf and promise yourself not to think about. We did a tour. He pointed, I nodded. Cameras, discreet and everywhere. Contact sensors on windows. Panic scenes programmed into his phone. The garage opener tied to the door chimes, so he'd know when I came home. "You're safe," he said. "It's all connected." "Everything connected," I murmured. That's how nets work. He didn't like that line. He brightened, pivoted. "Let's replace the hallway CO unit just in case. I'll order a pro-grade model. Industrial sensor, remote readouts, the works." "Wonderful," I said, and poured us both tea that only I drank. After lunch, my daughter Lena dropped by. Paint on her knuckles, hair in a loose rope. She's the kind of kid who notices other people's shoes and what season they're wearing on their faces. She touched my cheek and asked the nurses questions twice, but softer. "Something feels off," she whispered when Evan left to take a call. "Like the house is watching you more than it should." "It's programmed to watch," I said. "Besides, your brother's got the reins. He likes the reins." "I know," she said, biting the corner of her lip the way her mother did when the countertop installation went crooked 20 years ago. "Just don't take your phone off you, okay? Text me if you hear anything strange again." After she left, the afternoon sat beside me like an old dog. Warm, familiar, a little wheezy. I wound the brass clock on the mantel. Its tick filled the living room with a heartbeat I understood. Every mechanical thing speaks a language the hands can translate. The new things talk in code. Codes belong to whoever holds the key. Evening brought weather and the sound of it. Sleet pecking at the windows. The street wearing a shiny new skin. I warmed soup. The spoon tapped the bowl, a small bell. I told myself the hospital smell had already washed from my hair. At 9:40, a faint chirp came from the sideboard. Not an alarm. A note clearing its throat. The hub screen brightened with a courteous glow. A banner slid up as if it had been waiting for exactly this hour. Scheduled automation, night ventilation bedroom. Status, pending 10 minutes. Created by Evan_admin. Last modified, yesterday 11:58 p.m. My spoon paws midair. 10 minutes. A polite countdown to something with no manners at all. I tapped the screen. The house accepted my fingerprint and told me nothing. I tried the voice command. Cancel night ventilation now. Authorization required. It answered, too kind. Administrator credentials. Administrator. That word pressed down on my chest like a paperweight. I reached for my phone. Lena's number already talisman, but habit still my hand. I am a father raised on fixing from within. You open the back, you find the screw that matters. In the hall closet, behind the coats that still smell like last winter, I keep a toolbox with a red handle. Every time I pick it up, I feel younger by 8 years and stiffer by 3. I took the small screwdriver and the kind of hope that prefers to go unnamed, and I went downstairs to the utility room. The ventilation manifold is a metal throat. It breathes for the house. I pressed my ear to the casing and heard a faint whir like a whisper one room over. Along the plenum, a tidy array of couplings. And there, among the proper parts, a stranger, a narrow relay wired to a T-valve. Its label printed neat on a sticker. CO valve remote, Rev B. Someone had tucked it in with care. Tape aligned, screws seated, no panic in any of it. People who love order do their worst deeds in straight lines. My phone buzzed in my breast pocket. A text from Evan. "Evan, you okay?" Thought I saw some weird sensor noise. "Ping me if you need help. Ping me if you need help." I stood very still and let the irony pass like a slow truck. Upstairs again, the hub's banner counted down to 3 minutes. The soft, shameless neutrality of the thing almost made me laugh. The bulbs were still a clean, innocent white. The thermostat hummed with domestic fidelity. If evil wears a face, it's not the face of a machine. It's the face of a person who tells a machine what to do and then teaches you to call it safety. I called the electrician who installed the original hardware 2 years ago. He's a square man with careful hands named Ben Calder. He picks up for retirees and grandmothers. He picked up for me. Evening, Mr. Harris. Everything quiet. Ben, I said, do you ever get a job where the quiet is the part that scares you? A beat. Where are you? In my living room. The house is trying to put me to bed in 10 minutes, whether I like it or not. You want me there? I want you to tell me if a man can suffocate on a lie. Send me a photo of the hub screen, he said, voice steady. And keep a window open. Keep your phone on you. If anything smells like pennies, go outside. I sent the photo. 2 minutes. I could hear the furnace cut to idle, the way a runner leans forward before the gun. Another text arrived, not from Ben. Evan, I pushed a quick patch. Might see some weird behavior. Don't worry if it locks for a sec. It's just sinking. It's just sinking. I set my wife's brass clock next to the hub. The tick was louder than I remembered. Or maybe I finally understood the sound. Machines that tell the truth don't need screens. I slid the clock closer until its little bell kissed the hub's glossy corner with a polite, stubborn click. Magnets inside the clock's case tugged ever so lightly at the hub's face. The banner flickered. Cancel night ventilation, I said, quiet as a dare. Authorization, Harris master. I had never been a master of anything, not in writing, not in code. I said it anyway. Request denied. The voice replied, and for the first time it sounded almost like someone I knew. The front door latch snicked open. Ben stepped in with a nod like a blessing, a canvas work bag on his shoulder. He didn't touch the hub. He looked at it the way a carpenter looks at a wall that isn't plumb. Don't breathe deep, he said gently. He opened the kitchen window 2 inches and the back bath window 3. He moved with a calm that soaked into the baseboards. Let the cross draft do some of the talking. We stood like parishioners in a strange midnight service. The banner reached 10 seconds and began to mark each one with a soft, almost apologetic pulse. 9, 8, 7. Tell me when you first felt wrong. Ben said. Last night, I answered. And then, this morning when everything pretended to be right. 6, 5, 4. Ben's thumb rested on his phone. He wasn't dialing. He was watching a tiny graph like a rain gutter. I'm seeing a handshake on the local network, he murmured. An internal device is authenticating and pushing a scene. 3. Whose device? I asked, though my mouth already knew the shape of the answer. 2. An admin profile. Ben said, eyes on the graph. Name string is abbreviated. EV_. Could be noise. Could be. 1. The living room inhaled, not air and intention. The hub brightened, and the hallway detector blinked its green smile again, the way some people smile when they're lying to be polite. Somewhere below, a servo motor engaged with the confidence of habit. Ben didn't curse. He reached into his bag and handed me a small battery-powered monitor with a dumb gray face. No cloud, no voice, just numbers and a bar that got fat when it ought to stay thin. He set it low by the floor. Watch that, he said, and tell me if your teeth feel funny. We waited. The bar inched thicker, as if embarrassment had weight. The number climbed like a stubborn thermometer. I looked at the hub and then at the brass clock beside it. The clock ticked, true and ridiculous. The hub hummed, wealthy and certain. In that quiet, a simple thought arrived on soft shoes. A house is only as kind as the hands that teach it manners. Ben's phone buzzed. He glanced down, then up at me with a face I'd seen men wear at funerals. It's not a hack, Mr. Harris, he said. It's a schedule. Someone inside said it, and they said it to repeat. I turned the brass clock so I could see its face. The second hand swept, perfect as a vowel. Behind the glass, a pale reflection of me stared back, An old man holding a thing that told the truth one small click at a time. Somewhere upstairs, a door I did not touch locked itself. Ben didn't flinch when the upstairs latch clicked itself shut. He just tilted his head, the way a man listens for thunder after counting the lightning. "Windows stay cracked," he said. "You sit where the air moves. I'm going to trace that relay." I sat at the kitchen table where sunlight had washed the wood thin in the middle. A draft crossed my ankles, winter threading its needle, and the old ache in my knee woke like an obedient dog. I set my wife's brass clock on a folded dish towel and let its steady tick make a metronome of my nerves. The hub on the sideboard pulsed a soft, stubborn glow, like a child pretending not to have crumbs on its face. Ben vanished into the utility room, his canvas bag clinking. I held the house with my ears. The hum of the fridge, the soft chuff of the furnace fan, the murmur of air choosing a path that shouldn't have been offered. Somewhere upstairs a blind snapped against glass. Somewhere in me a small door shut and announced it would not open until I asked the right question in the right voice. My phone buzzed. A message from Lena. "How are you breathing?" I answered the way I answer my children when I need them to worry, just enough and no more. "I'm upright. Fresh air helps. Your brother loves the settings. Don't let him reset anything without you watching," she wrote. "Promise me that." "Dad." Ben returned with dust on his sleeve and the look of a man who has found a wrong wire tucked neatly where only the neatest hands could tuck it. He set a small plastic casing on the table. Its face was blank, except for a tidy label. "Same relay you saw," he said, "but there's a second lead spliced behind it. It's not factory. Someone ran a low-voltage control line from the hub cabinet to the vent bypass. If the hub says night, that valve listens. Someone," I repeated, tasting the shape of that word. Not an accident, not a software burp. Someone. Ben pulled a laptop from his bag, an old square thing with the kind of keys that require conviction. "No cloud," he'd told me once. "Local only." He jacked into a maintenance port with a cable that looked like it remembered dial-up and began to scroll a console of pale letters. "I can mirror the hub's event database," he said, "if the administrator didn't disable the debug channel." "Administrator," I said, and the word fit my mouth like a borrowed tooth. He typed with the patience of a man, unwinding a knot. Rows appeared. Timestamps. Scene names. Device IDs I couldn't love, no matter how kindly they blinked. A field labeled owner scrolled past again and again. Sometimes it read Harris _guest, sometimes system, sometimes. Ben stopped moving. His finger hovered above the screen, the way a pastor might pause above a verse that will change a life. "There," he whispered. "That's your someone." Owner, evidencing. Create, 2:12 a.m. Scene, night ventilation, bedroom zone A. Repeat, daily. The kitchen got very quiet in the way a room does when a good lie is running out of ways to stand upright. Could be a truncated string, Ben said. Careful as a doctor. Could be environmental noise. A partial, could be. It could be my son's name missing its vowels. I said, there's a kind of calm that arrives when your fear finally finds a coat to hang itself on. I felt that calm slide over my shoulders. It wasn't warmth, but it fit. My tongue tried a prayer and found it had misplaced the first words. I settled for tea. It tasted like old leaves and clean water and the courage you get from heat. Let's not jump a fence we haven't walked, Ben said. We'll export a copy of the log, put it off network. You'll have a record no firmware update can polish. He slid a thumb drive across the wood. I watched the little light wink. Working, working, working. My pulse laid its own soft drum under the clock's tick. Percussion in a small church. The front door opened. Evan's voice arrived first. Easy, big, meant for winning rooms. Dad? Ben? I saw the alert. Thought I'd swing by with a CO monitor upgrade. He came in bearing a white box with marketing that smiled at you. His cheeks had winter in them, and that expensive fatigue young men buy when they want to look important. He nodded to Ben, who nodded back with the exact number of inches a professional owes to the man who pays the bill, but not the man who writes the checks. Hey, Evan said to me, careless as a boy pawing the cookie jar. I pushed a patch to the hub to stop the false alarms. Any weirdness should be gone. He put the sleek new monitor on the counter and tapped it like a pet. Prosumer grade. Reads parts per million. Won't lie. I'm told lying is a settings issue. I said. He blinked. He made a shape of a smile. He unboxed the device and began to narrate his competence, pairing, mounting, calibration. His fingers moved like he wanted the air to know who was in charge of it. Ben returned to utility room to check in neutral, which is electrician for I will not make your family conversation worse by standing here and breathing. Can you show me the patch? I asked Evan. I like to know what tells the house what to do. Dad, you don't have to. I know, I said. Humor me. Let your old man watch the magic. He flipped the laptop around. The hub's admin page wore polite blue. He moved to the automation screen. Rows of names, sunset scene, away mode, water heater boost. Filed by like a well-behaved parade. His cursor brushed past night ventilation, as if it were any other lamppost on a civilized street. What's that one? I asked gently. Legacy, he said. A template, not used. He clicked to expand it. A tidy scheduling grid appeared. Midnight to 5 weekdays, room zone A, bedroom zone A. Beneath it, a user field that read, Harris _sys. I watched the way he didn't look at that field. That's the tell. The place someone stares around. Looks harmless, I said, like a field you could rename from anything to anything. He closed the panel. You don't need to worry about the plumbing. That's why I moved home, remember? To keep the water moving the right way. Water, air, trust. I nodded like a man who needs a conversation to live another minute. Ben reappeared with a strip of foil tape and an honest smudge on his cheek. Lines grounded. I'd like to run a full offline diagnostic tonight, if that's all right with both of you. Tonight? Evan said, too quick. No need. I've got it under control. Ben's expression did not change. My insurance likes it when I confirm my work. Your work? Evan's smile sharpened 1 degree. I'm the one who integrated the hub. Then this will confirm yours too, Ben said easily. He has a way of turning a no into a yes without changing any nouns. We drifted toward evening. Evan stayed. He made a show of ordering takeout from the place with the pretty menus, the kind you photograph before you eat. He ate as if hunger were an opinion. I picked at a soup that smelled of ginger and good intentions. Ben ate in the way men who work with current eat, efficiently, as if aware the day might require sprinting at any moment. Lena slid in after 7 with a canvas tote and eyes that polished the room. She kissed my temple. How's your head? Still attached, I said. Everything is attached. She touched the new monitor and gave Evan a look that had too much history under it to fit in a kitchen. Cool toy. Tool, he said. There's a difference. Only if you're the one holding it, she answered. Family feels like will sometimes. Warm, familiar, and a little itchy when damp. We did the small talk required to keep the peace from noticing it was on life support. Outside, sleet turned to rain, then to wind that slipped around the sills like a rumor looking for somewhere to land. Ben cleared his throat. Mind if I check the door locks? I want to make sure the mechanical override still overrides. Knock yourself out. Evan said, flipping his phone in his palm, a coin trick I used to do when gas was 39 cents and cheap cigarettes were still called that out loud. Ben tested the back door. The deadbolt turned with a satisfying human thunk. He tested the front. Same sweet noise. Then he set his hand on the interior garage door, cocked his head, and frowned. The knob moved, but the latch had a stutter as if forgetting its lines. Sticky? I asked. Smart latch tied into the security scene, Ben said, almost himself. He opened his bag and produced mechanical bypass plate. You can add all the clever you want. A good piece of steel doesn't need Wi-Fi to be brave. He installed it. A little silver courage in a world of invisible agreements. My lungs loosened a notch I hadn't noticed they'd tightened. Evan watched with the interest of a man measuring the cost of an argument. We don't need to disable the smart features, he said, on what he thought was a friendly tone. That's literally the safety we paid for. Safety that requires permission to exit is a fancy lock, Ben said, cheerfully neutral. I like my egress plane. We lived with that for a minute. The rain hammered its point home on the roof. The clock ticked, reasonable as bread. The hub glowed, self-sure. My phone vibrated. A voicemail notification. The old icon that looks like a pair of eyes wide open. I don't check messages after dinner. Voices carry too much weight at night. But the transcribed preview caught me by the collar. Good night, Harris. Only this time the words carried the warmth of an old winter sweater I'd worn thin with loving. My wife's voice, clear as a glass of water. Every room in me went quiet. I pressed play. The tiny speaker on my phone filled with a voice I had been faithful to for 40 years and widowed by for 5. She laughed once in the middle of the sentence the way she used to when I caught my finger in the sugar jar. Then, good night, Harris. I stared at Evan. He looked at me with an expression I could not read and hope I never learned to. Where did you get that? I asked. Words came out soft. That's how knives ask their questions in polite houses. Old voicemail, he said. I thought it would comfort you. We programmed a routine to play at bedtime. Nostalgia helps sleep. There's research. Without telling me? You smiled the first week, he said. I figured it was fine. Yes, Lena said, voice quiet as a fuse. He smiled, and then he stopped sleeping. Ben didn't speak, but I saw him mark a door in the air where there had been only wall before. He held his phone at his waist and tapped something with the courtesy of a man sending a text to a dispatcher who keeps more than one kind of siren in her desk. I felt the shape of myself change. Not younger, not older, just drawn in toward a center I had let other people decorate for too long. The house had learned my habits. I had let it. My son had learned which feelings of mine were worth imitating. I had let that too. Love can be sharp. Love can be lazy. The lazy kind is the most dangerous. It lets somebody else pick the settings. I stood. My chair scraped the floor in a voice that does not apologize. I walked to the hub as if it were a child asleep under a blanket it shouldn't be holding. The reflection staring back at me from its black glass was the face of a man who has decided to learn a new language after all the books are closed. Evan, I said, still gentle, I'm going to ask you a plain question, and I want a plain answer. Who created the night ventilation schedule? He held my eyes like a lifeguard holds a surface, calm, unblinking, waiting for a shadow. It's a legacy template, he said again, a line that had been rehearsed enough to be furniture. Who created it? I repeated. Silence has a temperature. This one was a cold drawer. Dad, he said finally, you're tired. That is an answer to another question. He lifted his hands, palms open, the theater of innocence. Fine. I created it. To cycle fresh air at night. It's good practice. Healthy. I forgot it was still active. Healthy, I said. The brass clock ticked, a small soldier. Then why did the detectors smile green while I tasted pennies? He didn't answer. The hub did. A soft chime. A new banner. System update completed. Some automations have been modified. Ben moved beside me with the swiftness of men who work around live wire. He yanked the hub's power cord from the wall. The room exhaled in a way only heard by people who have ever unplugged a lie. The screens went black. The house developed a new sound. Just air, unsupervised. Evan's jaw tightened. You can't just... I can, Ben said. And I did. We're going offline. If something needs a breathe in this house, it can do it without a calendar. Lena stood between her brother and the sideboard without touching either, a peacekeeper who had finally measured the cost of peace. Her voice dropped into the register where family truth lives. Evan, she said, why is the admin profile called Evie_N? He laughed. Too bright. It's a default. System truncation. Ben's old square laptop chimed softly, like a pocket watch happy to be correct. He turned the screen so we could see. The mirror database had finished writing to the thumb drive. On the last line, the owner field for the most recent change blinked in a cursor's lazy heartbeat. Owner, Evie Anderson. Change. Disable local alerts. Bedroom zone A. That was the moment the ground under my house stopped pretending it was floor and admitted it was earth. I did not shout. I have learned over a long life that shouting is what you do when you want tomorrow to hate you too. I set my hand on the brass clock and listened to time do its one honest job. Then I looked at my son, a boy I taught to tie his shoes and to tell the truth about a broken window, and to say, please, even cashiers who had already closed the till. Son, I said, and the word still had love in it, because love doesn't agree to be evicted just because the rent went up. I need your keys. He stared as if I had asked him to hand me his lungs. The house keys, I clarified. The digital ones. Every credential. Every login. You can sit at the table and help, or you can stand in the doorway and watch. Either way, you aren't in charge of this air anymore. He laughed again, smaller, edges showing. You don't know how any of this works, Dad. I'm about to learn, I said, and I'm a quick study when breathing's assignment. He looked at Lena. She didn't save him. He looked at Ben. Ben doesn't save men from themselves. He looked back at me, and I saw the child under the man, an outline I recognized, and a shadow I didn't. Fine, he said. I'll email you the list. No, I said. We'll do it here. Now. I tapped the table. Sit. He didn't move. I sat first. Old trick. Works on dogs. Works on men. After a long breath that tasted like something turning, he sat. He opened his laptop. He began to type. The tapping of keys sounded like rainfall on glass. Steady, polite, almost tender. Evan's fingers danced across the keyboard, as if the truth were just another form he could fill out and delete later. Every few strokes, he'd pause, swallow, and type faster, a boy rehearsing adulthood. Ben leaned against the counter, arms folded, electrician calm. Lena stood behind Evan, her reflection caught in the black mirror of the hub's dark screen. The clock on the table ticked between us, its rhythm unbroken, the only honest sound in the room. Okay, Evan said finally. Admin logins revoked. Two-factor disabled. Here, your backup passphrase. He slid a small note card across the table, like an overdue apology. I read it. 8 random words, each more meaningless than the last. Meaningless, except for the handwriting. My boy had his mother's script, small and elegant, each letter stitched together like a promise. For a moment, I was back in another kitchen, another winter, watching her teach him cursive on a napkin, guiding his hand, saying, slow down, Evan. Beauty lives in the pauses. Beauty lives in the pauses. I whispered. He looked up, startled. What? Nothing, I said, folding the card and tucking it into my pocket. Keep going. He sighed, jaw tight. Dad, this is overkill. It was a bug. I fixed it. Bugs don't buy hardware, Ben said. They don't wire relays behind vent panels. Evan's nostrils flared. Stay in your lane, spark plug. Ben didn't flinch. My lane keeps people alive. The air between them felt charged. If you touched it, it might have bit you. I raised my hand. A referee in his own home. Enough. We're done fighting ghosts tonight. Ben, thank you. You can finish diagnostics tomorrow. He nodded, gathering his tools with the quiet respect of someone who's seen too many families break under smaller lies. Before leaving, he gave me a look that said everything words couldn't. Stay awake. Keep the windows open. When the door clicked shut, the house felt both emptier and heavier. Evan rubbed his face. Dad, you know I'm trying to help. This paranoia, it's not you. I studied him. The shadows under his eyes were deeper than last month. His cheeks had lost color. Maybe guilt was a hunger that ate you slow. I appreciate your help, I said. But sometimes people help until there's nothing left to fix. He looked at me, searching for softness. I gave him none. I'll sleep on the couch tonight, he muttered. Keep an eye on things. Do that, I said. Keep an eye on yourself, too. That night, I didn't sleep. Old men don't dream when they're waiting for the truth. They calculate it. Rain returned, tapping on the windows like fingers asking to be forgiven. I sat in the glow of a single lamp, notebook open. I listed every strange thing since Evan moved back. New router for better security. Cameras in the hallway. My bank app asking for extra verification. Insurance papers arriving with my name misspelled twice. I wrote until ink ran thin, until guilt's whisper became a theory that frightened me. At 2:10 a.m., the brass clock struck soft against the silence. I looked up. A pale blue light pulsed from under the door leading to the basement. Not the hub, it was unplugged. Another source. Hidden. Breathing. I grabbed my cane, and the flashlight Ben had left behind. The wooden stairs creaked like old bones. Basement air carries its own smell, damp cement, rust, and memory. But tonight, there was something else, a faint sweetness like burnt sugar. The flashlight beam swept over boxes labeled Zmaz, tools, linens. Then, in the far corner behind the furnace, something gleamed, a small metal box, not factory-made, sleek, compact, wired into the vent line. I approached it slowly. On its lid, a green LED pulsing like a heartbeat. A sticker read, Project HCO Control Unit. Harris. Co. My name, my air. I crouched. My knees complained. But truth has always been worth a little pain. The box emitted a faint hum, steady, self-satisfied. I followed the cable. It disappeared into the wall, snaking up toward the main floor. Next it lay a small folder, half hidden under insulation tape. Inside were receipts. Industrial gas cylinder rentals, ventilation components, home hub integration cable kit, all purchased under E. Harris. I held that name and felt something split quietly inside me. I was still staring when I heard footsteps on the floor above. Slow, deliberate. Then Evan's voice drifted down through the vent. Dad? Can't sleep again. He was in the hallway, watching, listening. I turned off the flashlight and stood very still. After a pause, his voice softened. It's cold tonight. Don't stay up too late. He moved away. The floor groaned once, then silence. I stayed another 10 minutes, staring at the box, my son's name etched into its power cord. Then I unplugged it. The hum died instantly, leaving only the house's shallow breathing. By morning, the world looked normal again, deceptively so. Sunlight touched the kitchen table like forgiveness. Evan brewed coffee, humming, pretending sleep, had healed us both. He placed a cup in front of me, same mug my wife used to paint with lilies. Morning, Dad, he said, as if kindness could erase wire and poison. Morning. He sat across from me, smiling too easily. Ben's a good guy, but he overreacts. I checked the vent system. No leak, no issue. That old relay? Just a leftover part from the HVAC install. He sipped his coffee, eyes on me the whole time. You look tired. Thinking too much, I said. You should let me handle things. You always taught me to trust the experts. Experts, I repeated. And what are you, Evan? He grinned. Just your son. The way he said it. Soft, rehearsed. Sounded like someone auditioning for innocence. The brass clock ticked. Each second a question I didn't dare ask yet. Instead, I reached for my cup, the porcelain warm against my palm. But when I lifted it to drink, a faint smell caught me. Sharp, chemical, wrong. I set it down. The liquid inside shimmered slightly under the light. I looked at him. He didn't blink. I added cinnamon, he said, for the blood pressure. The lie was almost beautiful. I smiled, the kind of smile that buys time. You always were thoughtful. He leaned back, satisfied. Good. I'll head out for a bit. Client meeting. Don't mess with the system, okay? We'll reset tonight. Of course, I said. When the door shut behind him, I poured the coffee down the sink. The scent rose up, bitter and metallic. My pulse thudded in my wrists. I rinsed the cup 3 times. Then I stared at the drain, wondering how many quiet ways there are to die in your own kitchen. Later, Ben returned. His boots brought sanity with them. He looked at my face and didn't ask, he knew. I showed him the receipts, the device, the folder. He whistled low. This wasn't built overnight. How long? I asked. He studied the wear on the screws, the faint heat discoloration on the casing. 8 months, maybe 9. Long enough for a man to think he deserves what he's building. He touched the unplugged cable. You saved yourself last night. I swallowed hard. Feels more like I just postponed the bill. Ben nodded. Maybe, but now we know who's sending the invoice. Outside, a car engine started, the low purr of Evan's sedan. Through the window, I saw him pause at the curb, staring at the house. Our eyes met through glass and distance. He smiled, waved, and drove off. Ben followed my gaze. What's next? I closed my eyes, hearing the clock's heartbeat. We don't tell him yet. If he thinks the plan's still working, he'll show us the rest. Ben exhaled. Careful, Mr. Harris. Smart sons make smarter traps. I raise him, I said quietly. I know how his mind builds walls, and I know where they leak. That night, I moved the brass clock on the table to my bedside. Every tick reminded me of the sound my heart refused to forget in the darkness. The house slept or pretended to, and I lay there, eyes open, whispering a promise to the ceiling. If my boy thinks he can bury me with machines, he's forgotten who taught him to build them. Morning came gray, quiet, heavy with that kind of stillness that always follows a storm, when the sky looks tired of holding secrets. I made oatmeal the way my wife used to, with milk instead of water, a pinch of salt, and a promise that life still had flavor. Ben had left early, said he'd get someone he trusts to look at the gas lines and insurance records. He didn't say the police, but I could hear it folded inside the sentence. The house, for once, behaved. No alarms, no blinking lights. The hub sat unplugged, blank and harmless, a sleeping animal. I kept the windows open. Cold air wandered in, brushing my face like forgiveness I wasn't sure I deserved. Evan came home at noon. He looked surprised to find me at the kitchen table with the laptop open. Morning, Dad, he said. Working on something? Just a list. I answered, eyes on the screen. Of all the ways this house tried to love me to death. He laughed. That half sigh he uses when he's pretending not to be cornered. Still on that? I told you, everything's fine. Everything. I repeated. You always like that word. Big, neat, tidy, like a file folder. He frowned. What's that supposed to mean? I didn't answer. Instead, I clicked the spacebar. The laptop played back a screen recording. Ben's mirror log. The timestamp, the event list, the owner field. E.V. Anderson. I turned the screen toward him. This what fine looks like to you? For a second, he said nothing. Just watched. You could almost see the gears behind his eyes trying to choose a story fast enough to save him. Dad, he started, voice low. It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think, I said softly. You wired a valve to feed poison into the vent. You disabled alerts. You even used her voice to tell me goodnight. Why, Evan? Why? He ran a hand through his hair. The mask cracked just a little. You don't get it. I wasn't going to hurt you. I needed to simulate a system error for the claim. What claim? He stared at the counter, jaw working like he was chewing on regret. The insurance one, for the flood damage. I used your name to keep the policy active, and I couldn't change it without your verification code. I needed a malfunction record so the adjuster would. He stopped, realized he'd said too much, looked at me like a boy who'd kicked open his own confession. You were going to fake a death claim, I said. My voice wasn't angry. It was tired. You thought you could control the variables. A few hours of gas. Maybe I'd pass out. You'd rescue me, get the payout, fix your mess. He didn't deny it. He didn't have to. Crypto, I said. The loans. He nodded once, small, ashamed. I was going to fix it, he whispered. You weren't supposed to. It wasn't supposed to. Kill me? I said. He swallowed. No, just reset things. I laughed, but it came out broken. Reset, like your hub, like your conscience. He took a step forward, palms out. Dad, please. It's done. The valve's disconnected. You're fine. Fine, I echoed again. That word is poison too. A soft knock at the back door interrupted us. Ben stepped in, carrying a folder thick with printed pages. He nodded at me, then at Evan. Afternoon. I pulled your father's insurance file. Evan stiffened. Why are you? Because I like puzzles, Ben said. And this one's missing too many pieces. He spread the documents on the table. Among them, A printed form, beneficiary update, effective June 12th, signed in a familiar looped handwriting. Mine, or close enough. Forgery. Ben said, "You got a decent pen hand, Evan, but the date format gave you away. Americans write month first." Evan's shoulders slumped. "You don't understand. I was drowning. That claim was a lifeline. You tried to drown your father to save yourself," Ben said. "That's not a lifeline. That's a ransom." I stood up slowly, knees aching. "Leave," I said. "Pack what you need and go." He blinked, startled. "Dad, now." He looked at Lena, who just walked in, silent as a shadow. She'd heard enough. Her eyes were wet but steady. "Go," she whispered, "before I stop loving you." He hesitated, then turned, grabbing his coat. The door opened, then paused halfway. "You think you're some hero," he said, voice trembling. "You think shutting me out fixes anything? You built this family on control. You taught me to solve problems, not to feel them." I met his gaze. "Maybe I did, and maybe that's the part of me you'll have to kill on your own." He left. The door closed. The wind filled the silence. That evening, I sat in the living room with Lena and Ben. The brass clock ticked in the soft light. The house breathed quietly through the cracked window. Innocent again. Lena touched my hand. "You're shaking." "I'm remembering," I said. "How easy it is to confuse love with ownership." Ben cleared his throat. "I called a detective I know. The insurance fraud division will handle the rest. You won't have to see him for a while." I nodded. "Thank you." Outside, the rain had stopped. The driveway shone like a mirror. In its reflection, I saw my house, still standing, still wired, still capable of kindness or cruelty, depending on the hands that touched it. Later that night, as I made tea, my phone buzzed. A message. Unknown number. No text, just an audio clip. I pressed play. My wife's voice again. "Good night, Harris." But this time, she whispered something else, almost too faint to catch. "Check the air." I froze, walked to the window. The monitor Ben had installed on the sill blinked yellow. CO level rising, slow but real. I ran to the basement. The unplugged box was gone. In its place, a new relay, newer wiring, fresh tape. "Evan." He doubled back. I called Ben. He answered before the first ring finished. "He's here." "Not anymore," I said, "but his work is..." Ben cursed under his breath. "Don't touch it. I'm 10 minutes out." I crouched beside the furnace, flashlight trembling. The hum was louder this time, purposeful. The relay blinked steady red. I traced the wire. It led not to the hub, but to the breaker panel. Manual override. If this triggered, no smart system could save me. And then I saw it, taped to the wall. Another note. My handwriting. Or close enough. "Sorry, Dad. I just need one more chance." The house sighed. The vent fan whirred to life. I stood up, breath catching, the smell of metal blooming again in the air. "Not tonight," I said aloud. I ripped the cable out. Sparks flew. The furnace coughed once, then fell silent. The lights flickered, but held. The air stilled, heavy but alive. When Ben arrived, he found me sitting on the basement step, the brass clock ticking on my knee, such streaked on my face like war paint. He asked softly, "You okay?" "I think so," I said. I finally stopped waiting for someone else to fix my air. When the police came, I didn't say much. There's a kind of quiet that only comes after long betrayal, like the silence after thunder. When you realize the storm isn't roaring anymore, it's just raining somewhere far away. They took photos of the basement, the burned relay, the wires curling like black veins against the wall. They asked questions I'd already answered a dozen times in my head. I gave them everything. The receipts, the forged signature, the thumb drive. They nodded, wrote things down, promised follow-ups. Then they left me with a warning to get fresh air and stay somewhere else for a while. But I didn't leave. The house had already tried to bury me once. I wanted it to see me breathe. That night, I slept with the windows wide open. The November wind came in cold and honest, I could smell pine, damp earth, the faint sweetness of something alive. And for the first time in months, my lungs didn't ache. I dreamed of my wife, standing in the old garden, brushing the snow off the rosemary bush. She turned toward me, smiled, and said, "See? It still grows back, even after the frost." When I woke, sunlight was already spilling through the curtains. I followed it to the kitchen. Ben was there, sitting at the table with 2 mugs of coffee and eyes that had learned to keep secrets gentle. "They found him," he said quietly. My throat tightened. "Evan?" He nodded, checked into a motel 2 towns over. Tried to pawn the last of his tech gear. "He'll face charges, but he's alive." Alive, I repeated, letting the word find its shape. "That'll have to be enough." Ben looked at me, searching for something. Anger, relief, maybe permission. But I just stared out the window at the maple tree shedding its leaves, one by one, like a calendar forgiving itself for running out of pages. "Your daughter's on her way," he said. "She said she wanted to talk before the lawyers do." Lena arrived near noon, her face thinner, her eyes carrying too many sleepless nights. She didn't speak at first, just walked into the kitchen and wrapped her arms around me. I let her. Sometimes silence is the only apology that fits. After a long while, she pulled back. "He told me he just wanted to pay his debts. He said he'd fix it before anyone got hurt. He almost kept that promise," I said softly. She nodded, tears clinging but refusing to fall. "They're saying mental breakdown. Financial pressure. You know how they talk." "I know." I stir my coffee. People will always find softer words for cruelty when it comes from someone they love. "I'm sorry, Dad. I should have seen it sooner." I smiled faintly. "You were trying to heal." We all were. That afternoon, I walked through the house with Ben one last time before the system was dismantled for good. Each room felt different now, lighter, honest. The hub, the vents, the smart sensors, all the clever things that had once promised safety now looked small, foolish. We unplugged them one by one. When we reached my bedroom, Ben pointed to the vent above the headboard. "That one should come out entirely. Start fresh." "Start fresh," I repeated and helped him unscrew the last bolt. When the vent dropped into our hands, a folded photo fluttered out, creased, yellowed. It was from last Christmas, me, Evan, and Lena. Evan's arm around my shoulder, Lena's kiss on my cheek. We were laughing, real laughter. I stared at it for a long moment, then slid it into my pocket. "Keep it," Ben said quietly. Proof it wasn't all bad. I nodded. Proof it mattered. In the weeks that followed, the house changed. The wires came down. The smart lights went back to switches. I bought an old radio, analog, warm, full of static and humanity. Sometimes when I turn the dial, I hear my wife's favorite songs and pretend she's still just upstairs humming along. Lena visits every weekend. She brings groceries and the kind of conversation that fills silence without needing to fix it. Ben stops by. 2, usually with a toolbox and some news story about the neighborhood. He's more than a plumber now. He's part of the house, part of my life. Evan writes letters from county lockup. They start the same every time. "Dear Dad, I'm sorry." And though I don't always respond, I read each one twice. Because forgiveness, I've learned, isn't a gift you give once. It's a decision you renew every morning. The brass clock still ticks on my table, though it's running slower these days. I like it that way. Each second feels heavier, deliberate, precious. Sometimes, late at night, I sit by the window with tea and watch the lights from the other houses. Behind every window, there's a story. Some are happy, some broken, some still being repaired. But they're all breathing. And so am I. "Good night, Harris," my wife's voice once said. But now, when I close my eyes, I whisper back, "Good night." The air's clear now,